Good morning. All right, there we go. So I'm actually going to talk to you about a space that I've been getting to really understand over the last 2.5 years, and that's smart cities and industrial internet. I never thought I would spend my time and energy at sewage plants and water treatment facilities, but actually I've learned to love it. It's one which I hope as AllSeen Alliance really starts to recognize as one of the big opportunities going forward. So I'm going to show you a little bit more about what we've been doing in this space and how I think the Alliance can play as well.
A new era is underway. As time rushes forward, new generations are demanding greater connectivity throughout life, and many cities require smarter solutions to keep up. Qualcomm Technologies, a leader in digital communication, is engineering the fabric of citywide connectivity. We call it Qualcomm Smart Cities, and it's helping transform how people live and work around the world. Qualcomm technologies and open communication standards can help cities to scale efficiently, move data intelligently, and interconnect city services. Imagine buildings, transportation, energy, and infrastructure working together seamlessly. A new era of intelligent connectivity that streamlines city management without overhauling public and private infrastructure. Smart cities can empower workers with smarter tools and services. They can advance traffic management and safety on the road, and optimize electric vehicle charging to help reduce CO2, supporting a new age of transportation. They can enable us to harness energy more resourcefully and intelligently connect municipal services to support more efficient use of resources. As the world presses forward, Qualcomm innovation is helping transform the city ecosystem to create smart and sustainable solutions built for tomorrow. Welcome to the future of citywide connectivity.
So that gives you just a little bit of insight to the categories and areas that we've been focused. How many of you guys have seen the big belly trash cans everywhere? San Jose, other spots. So that's one where, again, you're using connectivity to really transform a workforce and save cities lots of money. Because in the end, cities aren't necessarily scrambling for more technology ideas. They're actually looking for ways to either save money, make money, or reduce complaints, which is one of the biggest issues for them on an ongoing basis. Now, what does this translate to from an opportunity for the people in the room? In the end, if you look at smart cities and the industrial internet, it is one of the largest categories of growth in IoT. It's also one that has the biggest reward. So if you think about helping a city offset, say, a $100 million capital investment just by putting in real-time sensing with about a $100,000 investment, those are big numbers. Now, a lot of times people say cities are too difficult to work with, but what we're finding is that the government is actually stepping in and helping to make these different use cases a reality. So we've been working on rapid prototyping and investment in those 4 categories you just saw, but the reality is the space is huge. This is in the billions, lots of opportunity to actually really connect and transform how the different cities and industrial units work together. So if you think about what happens when you have 2 million people who move into San Francisco over the next 3 years, and 50% of the population lives in an urban environment today, 70% is going to live in an urban environment. Now, typically that's more people in the same footprint with the same old infrastructure. So the cities are really looking for ways to how do they reinvent and reimagine infrastructure. So if they're going to make an investment, how do they ensure that that infrastructure gives them more information and provides more value to the people in the cities in order to actually be able to meet all of the different needs. So it's complex, but we're actually starting to make some progress, especially in the transportation, water, and energy. Maybe, there we go. So we talked about it being complex, but cities actually think about the problems in I would say, a more simplistic fashion. Technology is never the issue. A lot of times it comes down to the fact that on any given department, you've got 40 different procurement people. So you've got 40 people trying to make the decision on how something gets implemented. And that even gets compounded when you start to talk about the efficiencies really come when, say, you put in real-time monitoring in a lighting system and that information is shared with the transportation system or the fire and safety department. So how do you get those guys to work across the different departments? Actually tends to be the largest issue. But the problems they're trying to solve, pollution, health, connectivity, access to education, those are fairly consistent. So the problem statement is the same, but how you actually execute and work with the municipalities and cities tends to be a little bit different. So we highlighted these in the video. The categories Qualcomm is very focused on is smart building, smart transportation, smart energy, and infrastructure. Now, infrastructure is interesting because we really look at that as, for example, we have a big project in New York City where we're removing all of the old payphones and adding in interactive kiosks. Now, those interactive kiosks will provide gigabyte connectivity. The goal for the city was to provide connectivity to those who couldn't afford it. Our goal, obviously, is to provide connectivity, but then also that interactive element so that we have advertising, so that you have basically virtual libraries on every single corner. And the goal there on the infrastructure side is taking that same concept and applying it to light posts, park benches, trash cans. If you're going to invest in infrastructure on the streetscape, how do you ensure that it does more than one thing? So for us, infrastructure is a little broader than just simply concrete. We're definitely looking at how do you transform the different investments the cities make. On average, if you read any article, there's probably 10, 11 different categories in smart cities. We're focused on these 4 in part because they have the strongest alignment for us across the different total available TAM and connectivity opportunities. So if you think about AllJoin, we have been working with AllJoin in the industrial environment for a little over a year and a half and with the community. And it actually is the perfect connection from the standpoint of when you walk in and you have a conversation, say, with an IT or an operations manager in a facility, they really don't want to go too deep on whether it's Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or cellular or how does it connect. They just want to know that they have the ability to control and manage that entire subsystem, that they have the ability to turn something on or off, to collect information. So from their perspective, they're looking for a single network, even though it may be a heterogeneous network that includes all different types of sensors and all different types of hardware, but they want it to all seamlessly work together. So that's a problem statement that we've been working with, and we've been able to do some pretty interesting projects across the different categories and across the different device manufacturers. So one of those is we were working with San Diego Airport. Unfortunately, brand new airport, beautiful, and it has city infrastructure that meets, new city infrastructure, new airport, new infrastructure. And unfortunately, they had a water pressure incident on a Saturday, and nobody knew that water pressure incident occurred. It flooded the main control center and shut down their most profitable terminal for them, which is Southwest, for half a day. So that was the problem statement they brought to us. How can I instrument this equipment in a very efficient and effective way that would send automatic alerts to the building management system as well as to the smartphone of the maintenance employees over the weekends. So we worked on that project. We're actually now doing some additional implementations for them. But being able to actually, what we call over-the-top SCADA with wireless, so we're actually putting in the instrumentation and the knowledge base that you need in order to make some of those very specific enhancements. So that's just one example. We also have a couple other projects that we've done at UCSD, and now we're working on what we call an edge management gateway and platform that'll allow us to actually extend that leveraging AllJoin in the industrial environment. So we're pretty excited about that. Oh, that builds. So the adapt, the secure, exchange, and interoperability, those are the main requirements that we've heard time and time again from the people that we're working with. So when you talk to a facilities manager that provides clean drinking water for the city of San Diego, he considers his job pretty mission critical. He assumes that the people who are drinking the water assume that it's clean, and that it's drinkable. So as you start to get into these different categories, what you're learning is that the assets actually from the people who work in them are sometimes super expensive. If you're working on a generator, that's a $300,000 or $400,000 piece of equipment. So the value is pretty high. So they're really willing to work with you to put the intelligence on the edge to really understand how does it improve either the maintenance or the servicing of that piece of equipment. So the incident that I told you at the airport, that was a multi-million-dollar cost situation for the airport, and because they had to pay fines to the airlines. So when you're talking about millions and millions of dollars, the actual implementation and the cost of the equipment itself, typically they don't scoff at $20,000, $30,000 worth of equipment just to be placed into the facility. So what we've learned is that when those use cases get really dependent and really cost effective, they actually are willing to pay a little bit more. So for more knowledge and more information and more intelligence, and that's a place that we've been playing in as well. So technical challenges. These are different than in the home, with a consumer. You do have to speak to, an IT or technical department, but what they really want to understand is the sustainability of it. They want to know that there's a commitment for 7 to 10 years to be able to support that piece of software, because when you put in a piece of infrastructure, it's typically there for 7 to 10 years. So there's a lot of analogy with the industrial and the smart city space and the transportation space. It's a longer life cycle. There's a stronger commitment. As I just mentioned, the CapEx and OpEx investments tend to be a lot higher, so they think about them a little bit more. But what we're also finding is that the government is stepping in. So if you look at the White House, Envision America, and all the programs that they're putting in place, they're now releasing a lot of funding. So that has actually started to really release a lot of projects, especially in the water space, with real-time monitoring and sensing within a water environment, which is pretty exciting because the EPA and the Department of Transportation are now finally working together to provide incentives and actually work with the different partners so that they can solve the water issue without necessarily having to build new plants. 50% of the water is lost between its source and a tap, and you can actually solve that with real-time sensing. So just those stats and those numbers are starting to really start to percolate within the government and allow for energy and water transportation folks to start to look at things a little bit differently. And they're always looking for innovative ideas and partners in that space as well. Large-scale deployments, where we've found it very successful is in each of those categories, typically there's a system integrator that is number 1 or number 2 in their space, and they already have contracts with the city. So if you think about water, for example, we've been working with a partner called CHM 2 Hill. Now they're just CHM, and they already have the contract. So we've been able to do a lot of the rapid prototyping and a lot of the work without necessarily having to go in and win an RFP. And that's been super helpful for us as we work on our reference designs and the SDKs. So that's, again, I think a good way to start to learn about the industrial and the smart city space with not necessarily having to spend the time to respond to an RFP. So again, scalability, secure, quality, those are all things that are the essence of AllJoin and AllSeen Alliance. So we've actually been really trying to figure out how do we bring a lot of that core capability into the implementations that we're working on, and we've been fairly successful at that and been able to get a lot of good traction. Now it's a matter of doing the marketing in a different vertical and in a different space and getting the providers and suppliers in these different categories to really understand the value that it brings. From our perspective, it is highly fragmented, so every single one of those verticals, oil and gas, energy, they have suppliers and partners and ODMs that they have been working with for years and years. So now it's starting to work with those same parties and get them engaged into the alliance to really understand the value that the interoperability will drive the scalability and then ultimately the quality of the overall ecosystem. So I think that's a challenge for all of us, but it's definitely one that we've been working on at Qualcomm, and we're super excited actually to bring the intelligent edge to reality. So we are working very heavily on making sure that the projects that we're driving have enough compute capability to actually drive a workflow process or improve the quality of the overall system. So that, again, quick. I'll be around for questions, but I really encourage you guys to look at the category and the space based on the quality of the analysis from Harbor Research, IHS, whichever research company you talk to, there's definitely billions of dollars there to be had. So appreciate it. Thank you very much.